I'm going to invite our sermon sharers to join me up here this morning. And as they come up, I want to introduce myself. I'm Allison Marcus, the Director of Youth Ministries here, and tell you a little bit about where we went on our mission trips this summer and what we did, just so you have some backstory before they share their stories of the mission trip. Our high school in June traveled to Washington, D.C. With a combined mission trip with the Bonner Springs youth. And it was a very long drive out there, but we got there. And got to serve with an organization called YSOP, which stands for Youth Service Opportunities Project. And what their organization focuses on is bringing in groups and then working with the nonprofits in the D.C. area. And so we got to serve all over D.C. I think we served around 20 organizations that weekend, or that whole week. And got to work, our focus was on hunger and homelessness in the D.C. area, so you'll hear some stories about that. Another big thing that happened while we were on our D.C. trip was we were there the week that the Orlando shootings happened. And it was also the Pride Parade week for D.C., so it was really impactful for us to be there and focus on hope in the midst of a tragedy that was happening. And we experienced the city coming together through prayer vigils, through seeing flags raised throughout the city. One of our teams was out serving, and we came across a huge board that was a chalkboard that had the question, "What makes you come alive?" And there were so many answers on the board that it looked like graffiti because everyone had to write on top of one another their answers. And we thought that was such a hopeful message to bring to a community that was really grieving, and that we got to be a part of it and share our answers. So you'll see, you'll see as I fling my hand, out here as you leave the sanctuary this morning, we have made our own whiteboard for you guys to share your answers, and we asked the question, what brings you hope? So as you hear the stories this morning, or as you're sitting in worship, meditating, or maybe you're thinking about your week or the week to come, what has brought you hope over that? That is our challenge to you from that mission trip, and I hope you can share. Our middle school students in July got to travel to Wichita, Kansas, my hometown, and work with two organizations there in the downtown Wichita area that is the kind of the impoverished area of Wichita. One was called SOCI, so that stands for South Central, and that is the name of their neighborhood. What they do is focus on the gifts of the community rather than the needs of the community. So this community has always been told or thought, I need this, I need food, how do I get by? And this organization has planted themselves in the community and gone around and interviewed their neighbors and said, well, what are you good at? What can you bring to the community? What are you passionate about? And they got some really awesome answers, like I love to garden, or I love to cook, or I'm really good at crafts. And then they get to share those gifts with the community around them. So they're building relationships and helping themselves raise themselves out of poverty, which is a really cool thing that we got to witness. Another organization was called Raise My Head Foundation, and they are a 2-year program that works getting women out of human trafficking and reintroducing them into society, so teaching them life skills that they're going to need, helping them build community with one another. And they're starting that program in the fall, so we got to, they just bought a house, and we got to make the house a home for these women that are going to be coming in for that situation. So I'm going to let the youth share their stories and introduce themselves now. And we do this by asking 4 questions that kind of is impactful throughout our week, and they'll share stories. So my first question for you guys is, what was your God moment during your mission trip?
Well, I'm Kimberly Gordon. I'll be a senior next year, and I went on the Washington, D.C. mission trip for high school. And I saw God. There was one night where with YSOP, we served a dinner to, you didn't have to be homeless, but if you were actually anyone could come in, but it was mainly people stricken by poverty. And we made dinner for them, and I always figured that if you're making dinner for them, you never really got to talk with them, but we actually got to go out, and there were board games on each table. There was an intense game of Uno going on, and it was just nice to actually like sit down and talk with them. Like they had stories to tell, and it was amazing to see them. I saw God in like every single person there because like everybody wanted to be there, and they were having a fantastic time.
Hi, I'm Adam Gillette. I'm going to be a senior in high school, and I also went on the DC trip. My God moment happened on my last day of service. My group went to a food kitchen at the Church of the Brethren, which is kind of by Capitol Hill area. And so what we did there is we prepared and served a meal to about 40 or 50 people. But what was special about the Church of the Brethren is that they only had 2 staff members for their entire food kitchen. So they relied solely on volunteers to make all of their meals, and it just kind of hit me there that if they didn't get their volunteers for the day, like if we wouldn't have showed up, those people wouldn't have gotten a meal probably. So it really spoke to me about the impact of our volunteer service time there and how important it is.
I'm Joey Gillette. I went on the middle school mission trip. I'm going to be a freshman next year. My God moment on my trip was when Matt, the leader from Soci Life, he blessed us with oil before we left. And we had worked 3 days together, so it was just a calming and a very spiritual moment for all of us. And it really meant a lot after all we'd done, and especially that he made it different for all of us and that it was very unique.
Hi, I'm Claire Laws. I will be going to 8th grade tomorrow, actually. And I feel like my God moment on the mission trip was when we walked the labyrinth. I believe it was on a Thursday, and a labyrinth is like a maze, but there's no options for where you can turn. It's just one big winding path that leads to the center, and you can't go in a wrong direction, so that was good for me because I would have messed it up. And so when I was walking in, what I did is I thought about everything that was troubling me, and I kind of just let it slide away from me. And I tried to focus on God. And then when I got to the middle, I sat down and I prayed for probably 5 minutes. And I was just, anything that came to my mind, I prayed about it. And on my way out, I used what is called a breath prayer. And Matt from Soci Life, he taught that to us. And when you breathe in, you say your favorite name for God, like Father or Jesus. And then when you breathe out, you say something you're thankful for. And so I did that when I was walking out, and I felt like I really connected with God, and I felt like He was walking with me. And I'm really lucky to have that experience. And I did find a verse to go with that from Psalms 23. Some of you may know it, but it's, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Psalms 23, 4a. And I wasn't necessarily walking through a dark valley, but I did feel that God was walking with me when I was walking the labyrinth. And that was an awesome experience for me.
What is something that you learned on your mission trip?
Well, in the past, we've always pretty much stayed at like one site, and we stayed there like the entire week. But with this, it was more of like we went to different organizations or places each day, and it was sort of like we were a small part of like a huge picture. It was like the mustard seed, how it's a small little seed that grows into this huge plant, and I guess it just sort of taught me that you don't have to like do some huge and enormous thing in order to be helpful. Like you can just say hello to someone on the street or go to like harvesters or something. I don't know, it just told me that like even the littlest acts of kindness help.
I learned a lot about the organizations that we served in DC, and I think we hit probably about 20 with our groups because we kind of split out from our main group, and just how many organizations there were there was pretty amazing. And I just learned that you can go and you can find a place that fits what kind of service you want to do, and all it takes is a little bit of effort to find somewhere that you can serve and use your talents and give back to your community, whatever that may look like. So that's what I learned from this trip.
What I learned was kind of the truth that Soci Life has uncovered throughout their mission work in their community, and that is that our friends, our neighbors, and just the regular people that are living around us, they all have unique gifts and talents that can make a community stronger and more tightly woven, no matter how they're perceived or what stereotypes may befall them.
So when I went, I learned two major things. One of them is similar to Joey's, and it's that everyone has something to share. Everyone has something they can contribute. Everyone has something that can make the world a better place. And the second one is to just look past stereotypes and that God loves everyone, and everyone should have a chance, a second chance. And so my story to go along with this is that when we went to Jehovah's Grill, and that's a place that all the people who wait on you are ex-convicts, and they're people who have gotten out of prison, and they all live in the same house together because it's harder for them to get back into society because of the blank where you fill out when you're trying to get a job, have you ever committed a felony? And they have to put yes. So it's harder for them. So they live in their house, and they waited on us. And so what happened is at the end, our waiter, very nice man, he came and blessed us. He blessed our whole group. And he went around the table, and he said, Father God, thank you for these children, and may you bless them and your purpose for them. And I felt that that was really something that I've been told my whole life, like everyone is good and everyone deserves a second chance and that everyone has something they can contribute. But like just seeing that made it really sink in, and I really kind of like connected with it. So that's mine.
What's a story that inspired you?
Well, while we were in DC, we were exposed to much more poverty than we're used to here, and so I guess that really opened our eyes. And so in the past, we have this tradition on like the last night of our mission, we do a candle pass, and there were many tears shed at this time. I'm pretty sure like about 80% of us cried, and it was waterworks. And I just remember like actually all of us were changed for the better. We all agreed that like we were gonna come back and actually like change our like living habits, what we're gonna do here, like how we were gonna help the world, and in some way or another we were gonna make the world a better place.
I was really inspired at the YSOP dinner that Kim mentioned earlier, where we got to sit down and interact with the homeless people that came in and listen to their stories. And I was just inspired by how similar they are to us, and that we're all the same. We all have connections. The only thing that really separates us is the situation, whether it be social or monetary or food that they have or where they're living. That's the only thing that separates us. But other than that, we're all the same. And it was just really inspiring to hear their stories and to realize that they're people like us, and that it's really easy to go out and talk to them. And that's something that I want to carry with me throughout my life.
Something that inspired me on my trip was when we worked with, we call them Soci neighbors. They're people that lived in the neighborhood that we interacted with and interviewed. It was really inspiring that they were just so happy to meet us and share their talents with us and be interviewed. And no matter what they could do, if it was playing the guitar or cooking for us. And it's something that we should all really try and implement into our communities, learning about others' talents and sharing ours with people who live around us.
What really inspired me on our mission trip was the Raise My Head Foundation's mission. And when we first got there, we were informed a little bit more about what human trafficking was, and we were given a little bit more of a description in what happens. And we watched this video, and it was a girl named Sheila, and she looked to be like 35, 40-ish, probably now. She talked about her story and how she was in human trafficking, and there's a program in Connecticut that Raise My Head Foundation modeled theirs off of, and she went to there to get hope and to get help, and it turned her whole life around, and I felt like that really inspired me. And just the Raise My Head Foundation's place in the world, how they found their calling, and it's like they are helping these women who feel hopeless and who felt like this was the only option, but they found a new place where they can call home, and they can, after the 2 years that they're at the Raise My Head Foundation, they can go back into society and get a good job and go have a life, and they can live normally, as normal as they can, and it's just truly inspiring for me.
Finally, what was a bonding moment or most funny story that happened throughout the week?
Okay, considering we were from Kansas, we weren't the best at like navigating public transit, and I'm pretty sure Allison doesn't really want me to share this story. But I'm sorry, Allison. But I was in Allison's group, and we had already taken the metro. Nice picture. We had already taken the metro, and then we were walking to our place, and we ended up making one wrong turn and walking 4 miles in the wrong direction. And Allison tried to pull up directions on her phone, and then it died. And so we went to a post office. This really nice man tried to point us in the right direction, and it went on for like another 15 minutes of aimless walking. And one of the guys in my group from the Bonner Springs group, his name is Aaron, he went on like a 2-minute speech to Allison. I didn't hear it all, but it was basically, Allison, if in the future a youth has their phone, and they were lost, would they be able to use it? And like Allison, after laughing, was like, yes. And he goes, Allison, it's the future. I have my phone. And considering even though we were an hour late to our site, it was all good. And now looking back on it, it's incredibly hilarious to me.
It's hard for me to narrow it down to like one single experience because I had so much fun on the trip. But I want to say that out of my 5 mission trips that I've been on, this was the most like tight-knit group and the most fun I've had. So that kind of speaks to our group. And whether it was walking around, looking at all the museums and all the monuments, or just chilling back at the church playing card games, and we just got really close as a group. And also with the Bonner Springs group, we kind of meshed into one group, and that was really cool to see throughout the week too. So it was a lot of fun.
My story was probably Tuesday night, I think it was. Our second night was Soci Life. We did 2 things that night. First, we had dinner, which was street tacos. Best I've ever had. And only regret is that it was a family recipe, so I couldn't get it. I was kind of bummed. But after that, we had a yoga instructor come. And that's the funny part, because if you can imagine me doing yoga, that should make you laugh. But anyways, that was just a good experience for all of us and funny as well.
Okay, first off, Joey is totally right about the street tacos. Those were awesome. And then I have 2 bonding moments that I want to share. The first one is when our whole group did the candle pass. And you've already been told a little bit about this, but well, we passed around the candle, and everyone got to talk, and when they were talking, everyone else had to be quiet, and we shared our God moments and our funny stories, and some of us gave speeches, and a lot of us cried, including me, and we even broke the whole boys don't cry rule. Boys were crying. And then... yeah, and then... So it was just really, our group just really bonded over the week, and the candle pass kind of tied it all in, and it felt really just, we were all connected with one another. My other bonding moment I want to share, this isn't our whole group, but it was in the girls' room. And so every night in the girls' room, we pulled our sleeping bags into a circle, and we called it the Circle of Friendship. Corny, but it was true. And we all went around the circle, and we said our favorite things about each other. So, like, we would start with Maya, who's over there. And we would say our favorite thing about Maya, and then we would do the next person, like Olivia, who's over there, or Hallie, who's over there. And and after that, we said, is there anything anyone needs to get off their chest? Is there anything that you can't tell anyone else, but you would feel comfortable telling us? And so a lot of things were shared, private things that will stay private, and it was just a really awesome experience, and I feel like we all bonded really well together, and my girls are awesome, so.
Thank you guys for sharing your stories. Can we give them a round of applause? It's really hard to get up here and try to share a moment to capture a big mission trip, and I'm just so proud of them for trying to do that, and glad that you guys got to hear it.